We have one more writing from the Hebrew Bible to look at to wrap up our examination of the pre-conquest Bronze Age Hebrews and the worldview, the mental picture that they had of Yahweh and what they thought their God wanted from them. And it's kind of disturbing. We're used to a biblical God that advocates peace and love and justice. Yet we have this document about the rules of warfare, and they're pretty brutal. It's Deuteronomy chapter 20. It's not a song like Psalm 18 and Exodus 15, but it is the kind of thing that would have been committed to writing pretty early on and carried around by priests, even if they were, still semi-nomadic and having to move with all their possessions, because it dictated how they conducted warfare. So it was a very important official kind of document. There's a repetitious nature to the language that tells us that it may have been simply committed to memory for some time. So turn to Deuteronomy 20 and let's see what it says. The context here is the Hebrews are about to engage in battle with a foreign enemy, and these enemies can be either the local peoples here in the promised land that Yahweh has given them, or they could be enemies from beyond the borders, and the rules are a little different for each. This is the priest addressing the troops before the battle begins. When you go out to war against your enemies and see horses and chariots, an army larger than your own, you shall not be afraid of them, for Yahweh your God is with you, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. Before you engage in battle, the priest shall come forward and speak to the troops and shall say to them, "Hear, O Israel, today you are drawing near to do battle against your enemies. Do not lose heart or be afraid or panic or be in dread of them. For it is Yahweh your God who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you victory." Now, we have to remember that in the minds of the ancients, it wasn't really human armies that battled each other. When war commenced, it was the gods who were fighting. And this is especially true of the Hebrews. So armies are on the battlefield, yes, but it's really the gods that are leading them there. Yahweh is sometimes referred to as the Lord of the hosts. Host in this case is an archaic term for an armed body of men. He literally leads them into battle. So it doesn't matter if the enemy vastly outnumbers them, you've got Yahweh on your side. He's going to terrify them and break them down if you are worthy of it. Now, that doesn't mean that the human warriors are just puppets of what the gods are doing. It works both ways. It's a dynamic interaction that is foreign to us today. So Yahweh will give victory to the troops, but the troops also have to be deserving of it and show the enthusiasm and the loyalty that feeds back into Yahweh. You'll find a similar thing for the Bronze Age Greeks. When they go into battle, they have gods like Zeus and Ares that are their force in battle. And it's the gods who are doing things, but the human troops can also influence how much they're going to help them. Before the Greeks went into battle, they would offer what's called a sacred hecatomb to Zeus, which is a sacrifice of 100 bulls all at once, the biggest sacrifice they did. And in their minds, they were almost literally fueling Zeus, charging him up for battle, showing their desire for victory. And then Zeus in turn gives that energy back to them. So it kind of works both ways. It's just different than the way we think about things today. All right. So there is Yahweh leading them into battle. The fact that they're outnumbered doesn't matter because you got Yahweh and he's the most powerful. All right. Then the official shall address the troops, saying, "Has anyone built a new house but not dedicated it? He should go back to his house, or he might die in the battle and another dedicate it. Has anyone planted a vineyard but not yet enjoyed its fruit? He should go back to his house, or he might die in the battle and another be first to enjoy its fruit. Has anyone become engaged to a woman but not yet married her? He should go back to his house, or he might die in the battle and another marry her. The official shall continue to address the troops, saying, Is anyone afraid or disheartened? He should go back to his house, or he might cause the heart of his comrades to melt like his own. When the officials have finished addressing the troops, then the commander shall take charge of them." Okay, well, that seems astonishingly reasonable on their part. Anybody that is afraid you might die in the battle, if you don't really want to be here, if you're worried about something back home, it's okay. Go home and take care of it. Should we really take this at face value? Imagine yourself in this context. You're there with an armed body of men. They're addressing you in this way. Do you really think anybody raised their hand and said, yeah, you know what? I got this project back home. I got some vineyards to plant. You guys let me know how the battle goes. All right, I'll see you. No, nobody left. When they were sitting there saying, if you're afraid you'll die in the battle, go home, I'm sure the response was, we're not going to die. They're going to die. We got Yahweh on our side, right? This is the pep talk before the big game. This is the reverse psychology that the priest is using. It's like when the coach tells the football team, I don't think you guys got enough metal in you to defeat that other team. Yeah, we do, coach, send us in, right? He's just getting them charged up. You have to remember that ancient battles were not million-man armies. They were not large-scale affairs, as we might consider it today. It's not like you see in Hollywood. There's maybe a few hundred guys on each side, a few thousand would be a big battle. So whoever really wants it more, that's who's going to win. So he's getting them charged up for battle. All right. Then come the rules of warfare. When you draw near to a town to fight against it, offer it terms of peace. Well, that's nice. That's what we expect in the Bible, right? Peace and love and, let's not fight. Okay, keep reading. If it accepts your terms of peace and surrenders to you, then all the people in it shall serve you at forced labor. Okay, so that's the best case scenario that they're offering. Surrender to us without a fight, make it easy on us, and you all get to live and be our slaves. I don't think anybody really took them up on that offer. If it does not submit to you peacefully, but makes war against you, then you shall besiege it. And when Yahweh your God gives it into your hand, you shall put all its males to the sword. You may, however, take as your booty the women, the children, livestock, and everything else in the town, all its spoil. You may enjoy the spoil of your enemies, which Yahweh your God has given you. Thus you shall treat all the towns that are very far from you, which are not towns of the nation here. Okay, so when you're making war against towns beyond your borders and you prevail, you slaughter all the men, you take all the goods, sell their children into slavery, and all the women become your sexual concubines. It's in the Bible. Now, this is not to say that they were uniquely cruel, because the truth is, back in the Bronze Age, everybody behaved that way. Read Homer's Iliad, read about the Trojan War. It's exactly the same. When Achilles and the Greeks sack a Trojan town, they kill all the men, they sell the children into slavery, the women become sexual concubines, and they steal all the goods in the town. Everybody did this. It was the Bronze Age. It was a brutal time. Be glad you don't live there. It gets worse. But as for the towns of these peoples that Yahweh your God is giving you as an inheritance, you must not let anything that breathes remain alive. You shall annihilate them, the Hittites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, just as Yahweh your God has commanded, so that they may not teach you to do all the abhorrent things that they do for their gods, and you thus sin against Yahweh your God. So when it comes to fighting the people that were in the land of Canaan, in the promised land that Yahweh had given them, he's saying that when you defeat them, you kill everything that breathes. You absolutely exterminate every member of that town. And there's a word for that. I'm sure you know the word. It's called genocide. It's basically preaching ethnic cleansing, genocide on these people whose lands that the Hebrews originally had invaded. And it's pretty gruesomely and ironically tragic to find the Bible, the religious document of the ancient Jews, preaching genocide against other peoples. Now, it's important to realize a couple of things about this. First of all, they were trying to establish themselves in a land, and they were afraid of losing their cultural identity amongst the people that they were finding land with, in the same way that the Hebrews taken to Babylonian captivity were afraid of that, which is why they wrote all this down in the first place. But the other thing is this. Do you think this really reflects the opinions, the attitudes of ordinary, just run-of-the-mill Hebrews? Do you think all the ancient Jews were just breathing genocidal venom against all their neighbors? No, I don't think so. You have to remember that very few people had the privilege of leaving their thoughts to history. Ordinary people don't leave a paper trail. Priests do the writing, and priests write on behalf of kings who have imperial ambitions. That's whose opinions we're reading here. That's what gets preserved in the Hebrew Bible and in most ancient writings. Ordinary people, I think they were just like us. They worked hard. They wanted to raise their kids, got to know their neighbors, wanted to enjoy life. How do we know this? Because the priests are constantly complaining about it. Throughout the Bible, you'll find the priest giving rule after rule, injunction after injunction about don't go to those Canaanite temple ceremonies, don't mingle with them. Their ways are abhorrent. You don't want them to teach you their abhorrent ways. And the more they complain about it, the more they're revealing that this is happening, that they're powerless to stop this from happening. It's a standard rule of thumb for historians that the more something is outlawed and condemned and railed against in ancient writings, the more that something is going on, which is why they're complaining about it, or somebody's complaining about it, right? In future times, when they study our times and they see, for example, all of these rules against drugs, the war against drugs, Rockefeller sentencing laws, just say no to drugs, all this railing about the drug war, what is that going to tell future historians about us? We did a lot of drugs and they were powerless to stop this war on drugs, right? So I think that ancient Hebrews wanted to get to know their neighbors and enjoy themselves. Why would they go to another religion's temple ceremony? Okay, first of all, they were not yet at the point where people had to follow one true religion and where people proselytized and tried to get you to convert and stuff. That doesn't exist yet. But the Hebrew priests, being from this nomadic beginning, did have this sort of xenophobic fear of other cultures and this kind of contamination. Ordinary people probably didn't share that so much, but the priesthood and the kings, with their ambitions, they did. People went to temple ceremonies for one good reason. You had to eat meat that day. That's the attraction of going to the temple. Rich people will be sacrificing animals and you get to eat meat, right? You can't afford to eat meat on a regular basis because they're your cattle. You need them for milk. You need them for wool, for hides and stuff. So this is simply an opportunity to relax, get to know your neighbors, enjoy the barbecue, have a good time. So don't take this document as somehow describing how all ancient peoples belonging to this culture must have felt. We have a priest writing on behalf of a king, giving his view of how he would like things to be. That doesn't mean everybody believed it. But that is the document that survives in the Holy Book. So that's what we have to look at. So keep in mind that when we're looking at the Bronze Age and trying to gather up our evidence for how the ancient Hebrews viewed Yahweh, that we're really, for the most part, looking at how the priests and the kings viewed it, because they're the ones that have the privilege of leaving their thoughts to history. Sorry for my terrible work.